Guys, it's a lovely day again, and as promised we're going to be doing a bit of work on the bus, and today I'm hoping to adjust the valves or check them. Got a set of feeler gauges here. A lot of youngsters don't even know what they are. They're a thickness gauge, so you can test the thickness to set your points gap or your plug gap or indeed your valve gaps. So first of all, we need to get the covers off and get it ready for checking. Rightio, so before we can adjust any valves or check any of the valves, we need to remove these covers where the adjusters are underneath, and they're just on with this clip. If you look underneath is your exhaust, and round the exhaust is a heat exchanger. As you can see, mine's got a hole in it there, so it's obviously not very efficient, but I don't really plan on using the van in the winter, so I don't really worry about the heater. And if you look onto this heat exchanger, you can see it's a little bit oily. It's been like that since day one I've had the van, so obviously oil has been getting on it at some point. It may even still be. That's why I've got new gaskets for these covers. So first of all, to get this cover off, it's being held in place with this clip. It's just like a spring. I'm guessing, I think that'll just pull down. But first of all, I'm just going to put something under here, a rag, in case any more oil drips out. It might save it. Some people show these are really easy to get off. Put a rag round, pull it down. I don't think these have been off for a while, so I've used this screwdriver just to make a start. So now that should come down, and you can see that's already loosened up. So I'll just whip that cover off out of the way. Obviously that's down out of the way. There's a little bit of oil there because the oil will come up into here to oil these moving parts, and then that should run back to here where the oil is stored, like a little sump area. So not a lot of oil came out, which is good, but I haven't been started for a while. You need to check these when they're cold anyway. So that's that side off. I need to repeat the same thing and take the other side off, and then we'll be in business to check these valves, which are these screws and nuts, which I'll show you in a moment. Just whip the other side off and do the same thing. So there's the other cap off. That one came off quite easy, to be honest, but we'll put the new gaskets on when we put it back. Hopefully that'll stop it leaking. We need to adjust the valve on the cylinder where it's firing. Looks a bit oily under here. Some of this here is where I've tipped it in and spilt it, and I haven't made a very good job, but that's my problem. Anyway, before we can do any adjustment of the valves, we need to make sure it's firing on the cylinder that you are adjusting. Now if you look on here, there's a handy little indicator of the firing order, which is 1, 4, 3, 2. So we need to get it onto number 1 cylinder firing before we make any adjustments. And then there's another little trick I've found, that you can do one side and then the other without going back and forth to the sides. But if you look at this firing order, if you start at number 1 and go backwards, the firing order will then be 1, 2, 3, 4, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. Simples, eh? Makes life a lot easier when you're adjusting the valves. So first of all, I we need to start from number 1. So we'll get it at top dead centre, number 1, by turning these pulleys until my mark is at the top, and then we'll check which cylinder we're pointing at. Hopefully it'll be number 1. So I'll just do that now, get it in place. Right, so I've turned round my engine until it's on the top dead centre, which I know is this middle one with the little nick, and I take the cap off and check it's pointing at this one, and if I follow that lead it'll be going to the back one, which is number 1. So that means it's firing on cylinder number 1. So if we go underneath and check, these two should be a little bit of play. All the rest, that one will be loose because it's probably on an exhaust stroke. That one will be tight, that one will be loose, but we're not taking any notice of that. We're going to cylinder number 1, and they both should have that little bit of play. So we'll get my feeler gauge and we'll check the gap. So there's my feeler gauge, it's on number 6, and I'll just test that in the gap. There it goes, and it's just got a slight drag on it, so I'd say that one was correct. And I need to check the inlet, which is the same, just a little bit of drag, so that's fine. So that's how you check them. So now if I turn it backwards to the next firing stroke, which will be dead at the bottom, will be number 2 cylinder. So I'll move it around now and we'll check those. To move it to the next cylinder, rather than the way the engine turns over, we're going to go backwards. Now if you look, that is straight at the bottom. Some people will mark it straight across so that they can see exactly where, but within reason I can eye that up, and that's at the bottom, so we should be firing on number 2. Let's have a look. So if we're on number 2, these should be tight because they're either on the intake or the exhaust or in between the two, probably rocking. These, as you can hear, are now at the point for adjustment. Got the feeler gauge, 0.6 inch, perfect. Got a feeling these were done recently as other stuff was done. Just dragging, perfect. So those 2 cylinders are fine. I'll just repeat the same on the other side, so I'll continue to go backwards now until the timing marks at the top. Check this one and this one, nice tight, or just a slight drag. They're all the same anyway, so that's good. So now just these and we'll be good. I've got a feeling they were adjusted recently. But it's best to check them, as I haven't done them before in this van, obviously. Rightio, these will be the last ones. Just check it's firing on that cylinder. Feeler gauge in. Yep, just right. Come on. This one's a little bit awkward to get to. Just dragging. There we go, look. It's just dragging in there. So it's good. So they're all good. So we'll get these covers back on. I'll put the new gaskets in, whack them covers on, and they're fine. So they didn't need any adjustment, which is brilliant. I've got new gaskets, they're fairly cheap, so it's best to change them. Even though they're not split, I was surprised. But like I say, they're not too expensive, so it's worth changing them. If you look at this one I've just put in, the reason why it's black, I always put a smear of grease on mine to seal them. Some people use gasket sealers, some people use absolutely nothing, but I always use a smear of high temperature grease. One, it stops these sticking in place and you can't get them off when they're all broken, and two, it's just easier to get on and off, and I find that does stop them leaking better than nothing. So I'm not telling you what you should do, I'm just showing you what I do. I just use a bit of grease, always have done on all my cars, especially with rocker cover gaskets, sometimes even sump gaskets. Right, gonna get this cover back on, and that's that one done. There's this side back on. They're easy to know which way they go by the shape of them and the shape of where they fit. They fit on nicely. You just clip your clip until it snaps into place. That's all it is. Just noticed up there that it looks like a bit of a bodge on that cable. But hey ho. Like I say, I'm not really using the heaters control, so it doesn't matter. Maybe at a later date I might even lose these, because I think I've got a blow on one of the exhausts. If you look here, this one's been welded there, look. So I reckon probably next year I'm going to take this engine out anyway and have a clean up of it, and because I'm not going to be using those heaters, I might get rid of those heat exchangers altogether. But that'll be in a later date. But for the moment, that's that cover back on. So we're going to repeat that procedure with this one. Like I say, you can't get it wrong how it fits in. It can go either way up. Obviously they'll fit in like that. But first of all, I'm going to run some grease around it, pop it in, and then put some grease around the other side. Just helps it seal really, I think. Right, so there's my smear of grease on. I don't put that much on, it's all going to be oozing out when I snap it into place. But another good thing, that'll stop that gasket falling out of that cover when I pick it up. These gaskets, although they're not split, you can feel they're quite hard. And you can see where they've been pressed in, where they get that lip on them. So it's probably best to change them anyway. But if you haven't got any, or if I didn't have new ones, I would have got away with them, but I didn't want to chance it. So we'll get these on. So this side is just the opposite to the other side. We will just pop that in place. And there we go, that's in place. Can't go anywhere else. Let's give them a little bit of a wipe. Like I say, it's enough stuff on these heat exchangers on the exhausts not to worry about. So that's the valves done. They didn't need adjusting, but they did need checking because, well, you just don't know, do you, without checking them. And I'm going to be checking mine quite regularly, at least once a year, just before I change the oil. Which brings me up to the next job. We're going to change the oil. But before we do that, we're going to fire up the van, let it just warm up, not super hot, just let it warm up a bit, because that way the oil will run out much easier. I think I've got a bit of grease on this camera. Never mind. So yeah, I was going to take it for a spin around the block after the valve adjustment, but because they needed no adjustment, it shouldn't have made any difference. So we'll just fire it up, warm it up, and drop that oil. Right, before you go firing up after that job, make sure you put your distributor cap back on and fasten it down, and we'll fire him up. So we haven't started Bertie since we came in from holiday. What was that? 2 weeks now, I guess. And he's away. There we go. Like I say, I'm not going to run it for long, probably 5 minutes, and then the oil will be warm enough for it to drain out. Of course, while he's running, just have a quick look. No oil coming out anywhere. Shouldn't be, but best to check. Check both sides. Nah, it's all good. Like I say, I ain't going to run Bertie long at all because we don't want him super hot. I don't know if I said in the last video, but we got a lot better miles to the gallon than we were getting before. After the last holiday we checked it, I think I was getting about 32, so that's really good, considering we were only getting 20, 21. If anything, Bertie's getting better by the minute. Right, I think that's going to be long enough. Like I say, I don't want it super hot, just warm enough so that'll run out a lot easier.